All right, so today we're gonna do something totally different. Today we're gonna talk about something which no one ever really talks about in our boats, which is modifying them. Let's void warranties. Put in way better seats, way better outfitting, and this is one of my favorite reasons that I paddle for Mountain Man, which is that I get to paddle the boats that I love. I mean, back there you've got my 1999 Mr. Clean old school Ripper. I've got a hybrid freestyle surf boat, my Jed, which I think is just the best current play boat on the market, but you know, it needed some tweaks. So all of these boats have completely custom outfittings. I'm going to talk to you about all of them, put it all together, and hopefully you can have fun trying this out. So I'm going to show you examples of 3 different ways that you can put a better seat into your boat. The first one I did was a Piranha Jed Large. It was kind of done really quickly. This is a boat that I was getting ready to go to Africa with, and I just needed a seat that I could spend all day in, and I wanted to really stiffen the boat up. So I took a creaker track out of a Nomad, chopped it down, added some aluminum square tubing to act as a 1-inch spacer to help it fit in, drilled some holes, bolted it all together, and presto, we're done. The second one I did was a old school 1999 Mr. Clean, and here I actually discovered by accident that the old Dagger, the old Perception, maybe even some of the old Wave Sports all seem to have the same seat geometry. So this was literally a wax on, wax off. I had the new seat in like 30 minutes, kind of did a little tweaking here or there, and I was out. This one that I just did that I'm going to break down for you was by far the most complicated. I'll drop a link in, but this is a Fluid Element, which is a hybrid freestyle surf boat. It's absolutely awesome for huge green waves and just sticking on things that you otherwise would blow off the back of in a play boat, but it had the worst outfitting. Everything was just square and angular and uncomfortable, and especially for a boat that you're going to paddle into, you know, the back of the lineup and sit in for a couple hours, it was just unbearable. So let's start at the beginning. You have 2 different basic Dagger seats. You have the playboat seat, which also shows up in the Axiom, where there's a dial in the back, which adjusts its going front and back, and there's a track which is welded into the boat that pins the seat and the front and rear pillars all together. The other seat, which you're probably more familiar with because there's more of them out there, is the creaker seat. So this is a solid piece of hollow rotomolded plastic. What they do is they shred down their waste, dye it black, and make these out of them. So incredibly sturdy, has a ton of support, and it's a really, really good starting point. So with these are what I usually use, and again, I usually either chop down to just the seat or I try to use the entire spine. If you wanted to, you could take the entire playboat system out and adhere it either by welding it or using some sort of epoxy or adhesive into the boat of your choice. So step 1 is get the boat out, get it at a comfortable working position, and start measuring. You want to measure the width on the top of your contour seat so you know from bolt to bolt what you're working with, and then from the bottom of the hull going up to the top of the seat what you're working with. Another important one is also the overall width of the seat, but you can kind of shave that down if you have to. Flip the seat over, pay attention. There are pieces of foam underneath which make it 1/3 of an inch taller than it absolutely has to be. So if you can, you want to leave that foam there, but if you're dying for space, rip it out and you might be able to wedge something together where you otherwise wouldn't. Next step, go over to the boat that you're trying to do the swap on, measure all of these things, do some eyeballing, make sure this is even going to be compatible. Then, if you think it's going to work, start pulling everything apart. Do so gingerly, save all your hardware, make sure that if it's not going to go, you're going to be able to put everything back together again. Yank that seat out, let's put them side by side, and double check that everything looks compatible. And then let's start to figure out how we're going to mount it into the boat. What I've discovered along the way is that the Piranha and Dagger spacing is actually the same for the bracketry they use to pin their seats in. So when I did that conversion, all of the hardware was completely interchangeable. I just needed longer bolts and everything was good to go. Again, same thing with an older style Dagger or Perception boat. All that stuff is completely interchangeable. Here, this fluid boat had a bizarre kind of like side pinning lockdown system and bracketry that dropped an adapter down from the hull. So I was kind of lost for a minute, but eventually what I figured out was that if I spun these around backwards and jammed them to the other side, the mounting holes still lined up, but I could reach inside of this track, and what I figured out was if I shaved it down, used the brackets that came with the seat to mark out new holes and reuse them, what I was able to do was flip those around, bolt them into the seat, and slide the whole thing in, pin it down, and I was good to go. So this is by far the hardest part, is often just figuring out how you're going to make everything bolt up. From here, it all kind of flows downhill. So cut the slots into the back of the cockpit rim for your seat buckles so that the seat hangs nicely. Notch the foam pillars if you need to. And then what I really like to do is build everything back up again and get as sturdy and robust pillars I possibly can. At the end of the day, especially like in my slicey boat where I know I'm going to take that creaking, I want the boat to be as rigid as possible, as sturdy as possible. And, you know, even though it might just be a play boat, the stiffer the boat is, the better it's going to be on the wave. So I could definitely, when I was in Uganda, see the performance difference between having a really sturdy seat in my boat versus a pretty flimsy seat in my boat. This is something where if you have the skills, it's really not a big deal, but it'll always take some creativity. But if you don't have the skills, maybe find someone to help you out. Like I said, every one of these seems to be a one-off job, but the results are totally worth it. Two things which you should go out and just assume that you're buying straight away are spray adhesive to tack everything together. Make sure that your outfitting feels really good. It's just a good thing just to have on a shelf somewhere for outfitting in general. And then a high-speed reciprocating saw. Those little craft saws are fantastic. It's what I use to make all the cuts in this, and it allows you to make these, you know, really precise plunges and things that we used to kind of like cobble together with a Dremel or something like that. It's just super easy with one of those. So check it out. I hope you guys try this. It is totally worth it. I usually am sourcing my seats from warranty boats. So if you're trying to figure out how to get your hands on a seat, I would talk to your local retailer or maybe put a feeler out on social media that you're looking for a broken, you know, Dagger or Liquid Logic or whatever seat that you're going for. And yeah, you know, I wouldn't pay more than $50 or something for a seat, but if you can get your hands on one, it is an amazing way to revive an old boat that you really liked, but you know, you don't really feel like actually using because it's just kind of a pain. Or to get a lot more performance out of something where you kind of don't fit right, but you really like the design. Man, I mean, it just makes these boats come to life when you're wedged in there. I mean, we all know that, but this is kind of, for me, been the next level on how to get more performance out of my boat and really enjoy my boats. So have a good one, guys.